You know what's fascinating about fasting? Most people think it's just about denying yourself food, but ancient wisdom suggests it might be the key to transforming entire communities.
That's such an intriguing perspective. What led you to that conclusion?
Well, there's this remarkable passage in Isaiah where God essentially calls out people's hypocrisy. They're asking, "Why aren't you noticing our fasting?" while simultaneously exploiting workers and fighting with each other. It's like posting about your meditation practice on Instagram while being terrible to everyone around you.
Hmm, that really highlights the disconnect between appearance and reality in spiritual practices. How does the text suggest we should approach fasting instead?
So here's what's fascinating. It lays out this comprehensive blueprint. True fasting, according to Isaiah, involves breaking unjust fetters, feeding the hungry, housing the homeless. And get this, it connects these actions to three key virtues: fortitude, prudence, and chastity.
You know what's interesting about those virtues? They were considered essential elements of character development in ancient wisdom traditions.
Exactly right, and here's where it gets really practical. The text actually warns that if you can't maintain the physical aspects of fasting, you need to stop and return to spiritual fasting first. It's like building a foundation before trying to construct the house.
That's such a refreshing acknowledgement of human limitations. How does this connect to modern fasting practices?
Well, think about how we approach fasting today. It's usually all about weight loss or self-improvement. But the ancient understanding was completely different. There's this fascinating detail about how the fat belongs to the Lord. It's a reminder that everything we have, even our excess, isn't really ours to begin with.
That's such a paradigm shift from our modern individualistic approach to spiritual practices.
And here's where it gets even more interesting. The text describes this progression where you start by practicing what it calls perfecting love, literally willing the good of others in all situations with no limits on mercy. Only after you've mastered that do you move on to physical fasting.
Well, that certainly turns our usual approach on its head. We tend to start with the physical and hope the spiritual follows.
Right. And there's this beautiful promise attached to proper fasting that your light will blaze out like the dawn, and your darkest hour will be like noon. But here's the key. These promises come specifically in response to acts of justice and community care, not just personal denial.
That reminds me of how many ancient cultures viewed spiritual practices as communal rather than individual endeavors.
Exactly. And it goes even further. The text talks about becoming what it calls a breach mender and restorer of streets to live in. It's suggesting that proper fasting actually transforms us into agents of healing in our communities.
So it's really about becoming a channel for positive change rather than just personal spiritual growth.
You know what's particularly striking? The text is incredibly realistic about the challenges. It acknowledges that failure is normal, especially in the physical aspects of fasting. It emphasizes the importance of humility training through patience, and specifically mentions that this needs to be repeated until it's stable.
That's so different from the no pain, no gain mentality we often see in spiritual practices today.
And here's what I find most compelling when God says, "I am here." It's not in response to people just denying themselves food. It's in response to people actively caring for others, breaking down injustice, and transforming their communities. The text suggests this kind of fasting leads to rebuilding what's broken in both ourselves and our society.
Well, that certainly gives us a lot to think about regarding how we approach spiritual practices in our modern world.
Indeed, and perhaps that's the most important takeaway. True fasting isn't just about what we give up. It's about what we give to others and how we participate in healing the world. It's a complete reframing of spiritual practice from individual achievement to communal transformation.